Hello friends, my name is Raza Masood. Today we will discuss about a topic mandatory dependency. Friend, this is a very easy topic to understand and I would like to tell you that this is very important to understand the concept of mandatory dependency in terms of project management or PMBOK, project management body of knowledge. Friend, I want to make a very simple video so that everyone can understand the topic mandatory dependency. This topic pertains to project management, and today we will see that as per the definition of PMI or PMBOK, project management body of knowledge, what is mandatory dependency, and also we will try to explain the mandatory dependency with respect to some example as well, so that friend I want to explain this topic in a very easy to understand manner so that everyone can understand that what is mandatory dependency, and he can utilize this concept if he is a student and going to give an exam of PMP or university exam. So this topic will be very helpful if you are studying project management. Let me tell you friend that mandatory dependency is a very important topic, and you will must see at least 4 to 5 questions related to this topic, mandatory dependency. Also, if you are a professional and implementing projects as a professional project manager, so you will see the topic. You must have to know about the topic mandatory dependency, that how you can utilize this concept in the implementation and making the project schedule. This is very important to understand the concept of mandatory dependency. So friend, first of all, I would request to please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell option as well, so that my new videos can reach to you. So let's start. What is mandatory dependency? Friend, before going into the deep, just try to understand these two terms: mandatory dependency. Friend, dependency means that something is dependent on something. Dependent means that availability of something. Dependency, friend, is basically a relationship between the two activities. For example, let me tell you that, for example, dependency means that if you have a car, then you can go somewhere. For example, you have to go to some destination, for example ABC destination you have to go. So there are two activities required. For example, first of all, arrangement of conveyance, and then you can reach to destination ABC. So there are two activities. So that means, first of all, so there is a dependency. For example, if activity A is arrangement of conveyance and activity B is to reach destination ABC. For example, there are two activities. So friend, the activity B is dependent on activity A. Why? There is a relationship between it's a dependency relationship. Why? Because if you have a conveyance, only then you can reach to destination ABC. If you don't have the conveyance, that means that you cannot reach to the destination ABC. So friend, dependency means that it defines the relationship between the two activities. Here I want to explain the concept of activity as well. Activity means some task which you can estimate in terms of effort and cost, and it has some output as well. So friend, just try to understand. Activity means some task, activity means some effort which you can estimate in terms of time and cost. So, and it has some output as well. So this is called the concept of activities, and activities have some relationship among them, which is called as dependency. Okay, so I have tried my level best to explain you the concept of dependency. Dependency defines the relationship between the activities. That means two activities can be dependent on each other, or two activities not necessarily dependent on each other. For example, if you are a software manager, you know that once we start a project execution, we can do the software programming, and we can do as well the software programming, and another activity is software designing. So there are two activities, software programming and software designing. Both these two activities are not dependent on each other, so that means there is no relationship between the two activities. Both these two activities can be run in parallel. So the dependency means that activity, for example, activity A is software programming, activity B is software designing. So activity A, activity B, both are not dependent on each other, and there is no relationship. So dependency means, what is the meaning of dependency? Actually, it defines the relationship between the activities. And what is activity? Activity means some effort, some task which you can estimate in terms of cost, and in terms of time, and it has some outputs. So that is called the basic definition of activity. So dependency means we define the relationship between the activities, so that we can know that what is the relationship between the activities, so that we can make it is very helpful when we are making the schedules. So friend, we are now coming towards mandatory dependency. Mandatory means, friend, if you just see the definition, just see the word mandatory. Mandatory means compulsory. uh, in the exam, I must show, I am 100% sure that you have seen mandatory questions. Mandatory questions mean that you must have to give the answer of that questions. In the exam, if just if with respect to exam point of view, there are some questions which can be optional, that this is not necessary to give you the answer, and there are some questions which are mandatory. Mandatory means that this is a must have requirement, that you must have to give the answer, there is no other option. Similarly, mandatory dependency, if you just see, just try to take the example or take the concept of mandatory from there. Mandatory means that the dependency which is must have requirement, which is must have to be fulfilled, and we don't have any other option other than that. So mandatory dependency means any dependency which is must have to be fulfilled, and we cannot for replace it with any other thing. Mandatory dependency refers to a relationship that is inherent in the nature of work. This means that the tasks are contractually required, therefore no other task should be implemented until the needs of the mandatory task are satisfied. What does that mean? A mandatory dependent, let me tell you. For example, you have to complete the software development of one module. For example, you are implementing e-commerce solution, and you can say that first of all we have to complete the software development, and then we will start the user acceptance testing. So there are two activities mainly. One is development of software, the completion of software development, and then is another one is the user acceptance testing. So both these two activities are dependent on each other, and user acceptance testing has mandatory dependency on activity A. How? Once the software development will complete, only then the user acceptance testing will start. So there is a mandatory dependency of user acceptance testing on the availability and completion of software development. Let me give you some few more example. uh, Before you can proceed to paint the wall, it is important that construction of the walls have been completed already. Okay. Decorate cake can only begin once the bake cake activity is complete. Requirement documentation and client approval. Once the requirement documentation complete, then we can start the client approval activity. Lay building foundation and construct floor. Once the foundation laying building will finish, only then the floor construction will start. Build car prototype A activity and perform crash testing. Once the car prototype build, only then we can perform the crash testing. So friend, there is a test. If you just see from here, let me give you a very simple example. If you just see here the requirement documentation activity A and client approval activity B. Once the requirement documentation will finish, only then we can start the activity of client approval. So there is a mandatory dependency of activity B on activity A. So mandatory dependency means a relationship between the two activities, which is a must have requirement, and we must have to fulfill that requirement and that dependency, and we cannot proceed, we cannot replace that dependency or relationship with anything else. So friend, hope you like this video. If you like, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and thanks a lot, and that's all from my side. Thank you.